This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Halloween podcast. I am your host, Lyle Perez, and you're listening to episode 52 of our special series, The Dark Record, where we uncover history's eeriest stories, one strange and unsettling case at a time. The year was 1943. As World War II raged across the seas, rumors spread of a U.S. Navy warship that vanished from Philadelphia Harbor, teleporting hundreds of miles away, only to reappear with its crew horribly scarred. Some claimed it was an experiment in invisibility. Others insisted it was a hoax that spiraled out of control. The next entry into the dark record, the Philadelphia experiment. Let's begin. The legend of the Philadelphia experiment begins not in the chaos of World War II, but more than a decade later, in 1955. That year, the Office of Naval Research received a curious package. Inside was a battered copy of a UFO book, The Case for the UFO by Morris K. Jessup. Scrawled in the margins were strange annotations, written in multiple colors of ink, claiming knowledge of secret technologies. The notes spoke of advanced propulsion, alien involvement, and a particular naval experiment conducted in 1943 that allegedly made an entire ship vanish from Philadelphia Harbor. The man behind the annotations called himself Carlos Miguel Allende, though his real name was Carl M. Allen. A drifter with a flair for the dramatic, Allen sent letters to Jessup describing what he claimed to have witnessed. According to his story, on October 28, 1943, the destroyer escort USS Eldridge was fitted with experimental equipment designed to render it invisible to enemy radar. But when the machines were switched on, the effects went far beyond radar. Allen claimed the ship was enveloped in a greenish haze, disappeared from Philadelphia, and reappeared hundreds of miles away in Norfolk, Virginia, before blinking back again. The consequences, he said, were horrific. Some sailors were embedded in the ship's steel decks and bulkheads, fused into the metal, as though teleported mid-step. Others went mad, unable to reorient themselves after experiencing the void between locations. A few supposedly vanished entirely, never to return. The experiment, according to Allen, had unleashed forces no one could control. Jessup was disturbed enough to forward the letters to the Navy. Soon after, the Office of Naval Research arranged for a privately printed edition of Jessup's book, complete with Allen's annotated notes, to be circulated internally. This Vero edition became the seed from which the legend grew. It suggested that at least someone in government circles was intrigued, or concerned, about what Allen had claimed. Over the next 2 decades, the story simmered on the fringes of UFO and conspiracy communities. But in 1979, It exploded into the mainstream with the publication of Charles Berlitz and William Moore's book, The Philadelphia Experiment, Project Invisibility. Their work, based heavily on Allen's claims, wove together elements of science fiction, government secrecy, and horror. It was here that the myth took its final shape, a Navy experiment gone wrong, a ship ripped from reality, and a cover-up that silenced survivors. Whether fact or fiction, the tale of the USS Eldridge was now part of American folklore, a story of science pushed too far, whispered about in the same breath as Roswell and Area 51. And like all enduring legends, it began with one man's words and the willingness of others to believe. As the story of the Philadelphia experiment gained momentum, the U.S. Navy was forced to respond. After all, if an entire ship had teleported out of Philadelphia Harbor in 1943, there should have been records, witnesses, and a trail of evidence. What the Navy provided was something far less sensational, but far more grounded. First, the ship at the heart of the story, the USS Eldridge, was real. Commissioned in August 1943, she served as a destroyer escort during World War II, but her official logs tell a very different story than the one Carl Allen described. On the date of the supposed experiment, October 28, 1943, the Eldridge was not in Philadelphia at all. She was in New York Harbor, preparing for convoy escort duties across the Atlantic. Her movements were carefully recorded, and none placed her anywhere near Philadelphia at the time of the alleged event. The Navy also addressed the technology itself. Allen had claimed the experiment was an attempt to make the ship invisible to radar. In reality, the Navy was indeed experimenting with ways to protect vessels, but through a process called degaussing. By running electrical cables along a ship's hull and generating a magnetic field, the ship's magnetic signature could be reduced, making it less likely to trigger magnetic mines. Degaussing could not make a vessel invisible, nor teleport it across hundreds of miles. But in the fertile imagination of conspiracy theorists, the technical jargon became the seed for more fantastic claims. As for the terrifying accounts of sailors fused into bulkheads or driven insane, the Navy reported no such casualties. Crew members of the Eldridge later came forward many years after Allen's claim surfaced and stated plainly nothing of the sort had ever happened. For them, the idea that their ship had disappeared into thin air was baffling, because they had been aboard at the time, carrying out ordinary wartime duties. By 1996, the Office of Naval Research issued an official fact sheet addressing the legend. It dismissed the claims outright, pointing out the ship's logs, the physical impossibility of the alleged events, and the lack of credible evidence. No such experiment was ever conducted, the statement read, and the alleged claims do not conform to known physical laws. Yet despite the clarity of the record, the Navy's denials only fueled more speculation. For believers, the absence of evidence was proof of a cover-up. If crew logs contradicted Allen's story, perhaps the logs had been altered. If sailors denied the event, perhaps they had been silenced. In the paradoxical logic of conspiracy culture, every rational answer became another layer of the mystery. What the Navy revealed was a simple truth. The Philadelphia experiment was not in the archives, not in the logs, and not in the memories of those who served on the Eldridge. But in the public imagination, the ship was already sailing in stranger waters, uncharted territory where skepticism and secrecy collided.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Do you love the strange, the unexplained, and the downright terrifying? Horrifying History takes you on a chilling journey into the dark corners of the past, where history and horror collide. From haunted places and ghostly legends to unsolved mysteries and terrifyingly true stories, you will uncover the twisted facts that history books leave out. Who were the real monsters behind infamous legends? What dark secrets lie buried in the pages of history? Every episode, we reveal the eerie truths that will send shivers down your spine. Are you brave enough to face the darkness? Horrifying History, available now wherever you listen to your podcasts. But don't wait for too long. The past might just come looking for you. Listen if you dare.
If the Navy's records seemed to close the case, the public imagination did the opposite. The Philadelphia experiment was just getting started. At the center of the story was Carl M. Allen, an eccentric drifter whose creativity far outweighed his credibility. He claimed to have witnessed the USS Eldridge vanish while serving aboard a nearby merchant ship. But Allen's background tells a different story. He was known to spin tall tales, often slipping between identities, and he had a history of mental instability. At various times, he even admitted that his claims about the experiment were fabrications. But just as quickly, he would retract those admissions, insisting once more that he had seen the impossible. His shifting story became part of the mystique, allowing believers to choose whichever version suited them best. The Philadelphia experiment also benefited from timing. The Cold War era was ripe for stories of secret technology and government cover-ups. Americans already distrusted official narratives. UFO sightings, fears of nuclear annihilation, and tales of shadowy military projects circulated freely. Allen's story fit perfectly into that cultural moment, a ready-made myth of forbidden science hidden by a powerful military. In 1979, the legend went mainstream with the Philadelphia experiment, Project Invisibility, a book by Charles Berlitz and William Moore. Berlitz, already famous for popularizing the Bermuda Triangle, saw Allen's letters as the seed of another paranormal blockbuster. Their book expanded Allen's claims, adding lurid details of sailors vanishing, spontaneous teleportation, and government conspiracies. What had begun as one man's marginal notes was now a full-blown phenomenon. Hollywood soon followed. The 1984 film The Philadelphia Experiment dramatized the legend, turning it into a tale of time travel and government intrigue. For audiences, it cemented the story as part of America's folklore, something not in the Navy's records, but in the cultural memory of strange and unexplained events. Even mundane details were reinterpreted through the lens of legend. Naval practices like degaussing or natural phenomena such as St. Elmo's fire, an electrical discharge that creates a glowing blue haze around masts and rigging, were cited as evidence of advanced invisibility experiments. What sailors knew as routine science became, in retellings, the visible aura of forbidden technology. The Philadelphia experiment shows how stories grow when they satisfy cultural appetites. It began with one man's dubious account, but it endured because it echoed fears and hopes of its time, that governments were hiding unthinkable power, that science had already breached the limits of space and time, and that ordinary people were not being told the truth. By the time skeptics pointed out the inconsistencies, it didn't matter. The myth had momentum. Every denial was treated as confirmation. Every missing document was proof of erasure. The experiment had escaped the ship's logbooks and entered a place much harder to pin down: the collective imagination. When stripped of the atmosphere of secrecy and the allure of science fiction, the Philadelphia experiment quickly unravels. At its core, the legend rests on one man's letters, Carl Allen's rambling notes filled with contradictions, corrections, and wild claims. Historians who've studied his writings point out that they bear the hallmarks of invention, shifting timelines, implausible details, and claims that never align with naval records. Even Allen himself admitted at times that he had fabricated the story. That admission alone should have ended the legend. But once an idea takes root in conspiracy culture, it is nearly impossible to erase. The physics of the claim are also impossible to ignore. The story suggests that the Navy made a ship invisible, or even teleported it using magnetic fields and Einstein's unified field theory. Yet no version of physics, then or now, supports such an application. Degaussing cables could alter a ship's magnetic signature, making it less vulnerable to mines, but they could not bend light, warp space-time, or fuse men into steel. The idea that a destroyer escort could vanish into thin air is not science. It is fantasy. Skeptics also point out how routine naval practices may have fueled the story. St. Elmo's fire, a naturally occurring electrical discharge, often appears as a glowing green or blue haze around ships during storms. To an uninformed observer, it might look like a mysterious energy field. Combined with the classified nature of degaussing, it isn't hard to imagine how a story of mundane wartime experiments morphed into something far more dramatic. Then, there are the records themselves. The Eldridge's war diary, deck logs, and convoy assignments are all intact and consistent. They place the ship in New York, not Philadelphia, at the time of the alleged experiment. Crew members interviewed decades later confirmed the ship never teleported, never vanished, and certainly never melted sailors into bulkheads. Their testimonies align with the mundane story of a ship performing its wartime duties. So why does the story persist? Because it feeds into our fascination with hidden truths. A denied event becomes evidence of a cover-up. A lack of records becomes proof of erasure. In the world of conspiracy, the absence of evidence is not a weakness. It is the strongest evidence of all. And when books, films, and documentaries repeat the tale, it acquires the weight of folklore. The Philadelphia experiment endures not because it is true, but because it embodies a particular cultural fear that our own governments possess technologies beyond our comprehension, and that ordinary people are left in the dark. In that sense, the story tells us more about our distrust of authority than it does about the USS Eldridge. What lingers with me about the Philadelphia experiment isn't the image of a ship vanishing in green light or sailors fused into steel. It's how a single story, told by one man, grew into a legend that people still repeat 70 years later. Carl Allen may have been unreliable, even unstable, but his words struck a chord. They tapped into a fear that was already there. That governments experiment in secret, that science can leap ahead without warning, and that the truth will never reach ordinary people. The more I look at the story, the clearer the contradictions become. The physics don't hold. The logs of the USS Eldridge don't support the claim. The testimonies of her crew all point to ordinary service, not impossible voyages. But the legend doesn't need facts. it needs imagination. That's why books, films, and documentaries kept it alive. It offered people a narrative where hidden knowledge was real, where the world was stranger than anyone admitted, and where mystery still lurked just beneath official history. To me, that is what makes the Philadelphia experiment haunting. Not that it happened, but that so many people wanted it to have happened. The truth, that the Eldridge never vanished, that Allen invented the story, feels mundane compared to the possibility of teleportation or invisibility cloaks. And yet, reality itself is telling enough. It reminds us how quickly rumors can harden into legend, and how myths often say more about our anxieties than about the events they describe. In the end, the Philadelphia experiment is less about ships and science than it is about us. It shows how much we long for secrets, how eager we are to believe in powers just beyond reach, and how reluctant we are to let skepticism extinguish wonder. It may not be a true story, but it is a revealing one.
Do you love the strange, the unexplained, and the downright terrifying? Horrifying History takes you on a chilling journey into the dark corners of the past, where history and horror collide. From haunted places and ghostly legends to unsolved mysteries and terrifyingly true stories, you will uncover the twisted facts that history books leave out. Who were the real monsters behind infamous legends? What dark secrets lie buried in the pages of history? Every episode, we reveal the eerie truths that will send shivers down your spine. Are you brave enough to face the darkness? Horrifying History, available now wherever you listen to your podcasts. But don't wait for too long. The past might just come looking for you. Listen if you dare.
That brings us to the end of episode 52 of The Dark Record. We've traced the Philadelphia experiment from Carl Allen's strange letters to the Navy's thorough denials, from Hollywood dramatizations to the skeptical explanations that unravel the myth. The USS Eldridge never teleported, never vanished in a haze of green light. But the legend has endured because it speaks to something deeper. Our suspicion of secrecy, our hunger for mystery, and our willingness to believe that history hides impossible truths. Remembered, retold, and now added to the record. Next time, we'll travel north to Newfoundland, where in 1978, a massive explosion shook homes, shattered windows, and sparked rumors of secret military tests. Was it a freak of nature, a weapons experiment, or something else entirely? We'll explore the Belle Island boom. Until then, I'm Lyle Perez, and this has been the Halloween Podcast presenting The Dark Record. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps keep the show alive and weird. You can also explore sources, extras, and more at our Facebook page at facebook.com/The Halloween Podcast or at our website, thehalloweenpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. Keep your eyes on the shadows, and remember, in the space between myth and metal, a ship once sailed into the unknown. Have a good night.
Do you love the strange, the unexplained, and the downright terrifying? Horrifying History takes you on a chilling journey into the dark corners of the past, where history and horror collide. From haunted places and ghostly legends to unsolved mysteries and terrifyingly true stories, you will uncover the twisted facts that history books leave out. Who were the real monsters behind infamous legends? What dark secrets lie buried in the pages of history? Every episode, we reveal the eerie truths that will send shivers down your spine. Are you brave enough to face the darkness? Horrifying History, available now wherever you listen to your podcasts. But don't wait for too long. The past might just come looking for you. Listen if you dare.